This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
Welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And, it is a much nicer Tuesday
here
in
is.
Pittsburgh.
A lot different than this morning.
I don't know what yesterday was.
Yeah, it was chilly.
Yeah, chilly and rainy, and today it's sun shining.
Talking to these guys, they said next week's supposed to get nasty again. Next couple of days supposed to be great, and then it's get back to crappy again.
You know what? When we go to West Palm Beach for the owners' meetings, I want it to be bad here. I want it to be crappy. I want it to be ugly, snow, all that stuff.
And then we get home and it's all gone.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to be down in the, walking on the beach and hanging out at the breakers and.
But that's March in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's not.
Right.
It's going to be up and down week to week or day to day. But today's awesome.
I had to tell. So for those of you who don't know, I run the baseball league in Washington, the Pony League specifically. And my guys I sent out my schedule. We did all of our stuff over the weekend, had our draft and all that stuff. And I sent out
about that time too.
Yeah,
huh? Wow.
They start up here, and I sent my preseason practice schedule out. And one of the guys was like, "You didn't put a batting cage schedule on there." I said, "Well, first of all, we got to get the batting cage up."
There's no batting cage as we speak.
Yeah. Well, I have the cage. We have to hang it.
Okay,
now, to hang it, it's like 15 feet off the ground on top, and it's down a hillside. I said, I'm not going to be there that day because that's the day we fly to West Palm Beach. Is the day we had the work day for it. I said, I don't want you guys climbing up there in bad weather on ladders to hang this thing.
Yeah. There's room for error there. Huh?
I've done it by myself before, taking it up and put it down. I wouldn't want to do that in the rain.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
And plus, you know how to do it, and they might not.
And they don't.
Right.
But so that's what you're dealing with this time of year. We'll have more snow.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine making a practice schedule for baseball today because I'm sure
I make it whether they get used or not is completely up to Mother Nature.
Yeah, it's a guideline probably. Yeah.
Like everything, you have to have a plan. And then you
execute it the best you possibly can.
Absolutely.
But things come down the road that there's roadblocks and hurdles you got to get around or over,
My friend of mine runs the Mustang League, and about 10 years ago now, my sons and I took my sons and we went back and we coached a Mustang team, which is 9 and 10-year-olds.
Okay.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
My oldest son had just graduated college. My younger son was
he was a good player, but people don't know him, right.
So we go back and we coach a Mustang team, and a friend of mine was the league president at the time. He schedules you everything is filled with practice times.
Wow. It's like the whole NFL schedule that comes out.
And we didn't have any rain that spring.
Okay.
Now, technically, you're only supposed to practice with those kids 5 times a week or 4 times.
But he fills it because
he fills it up with all the days because he knows there's going to be rain.
Delete, right.
Some of the other guys were skipping some practices, and we had a tournament that weekend, so I was going to be missing 3 players. No, I practiced every single time there was a practice scheduled on there. We practiced.
Okay.
And so.
And you got lucky and you actually got him in. Right?
We had a meeting late in the season, and somebody asked about that, and he's like, Dale, how many practices you have? I was like, every one of them?
No, a whole bunch. Yeah. And we're good.
Lo and behold, we won the championship.
Practicing's important. Yeah.
I think we started the season off like 2-7 or something like that in the first half of the season. Second half of the season
came around, huh?
Much different because we practiced.
Coach them up.
Getting back to the point, we stuck to the plan. We were scheduled to practice. We practiced. If 3 kids showed up, 3 kids showed up, but we practiced.
You could get 3 kids better at least. Right.
That's the way I saw it. And hanging out with my sons, we're doing baseball stuff. It was fun.
Yeah. That's what you want to be doing anyway.
Absolutely. So
cool.
Getting on to the show.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some comparisons, Matt, of this year's draft to the 2022 draft, and I don't see that.
Refresh me. Who's you talking about overall? Or were you talking about okay, who's the first overall pick in 2022?
2022 was.
I don't think of it in years. I always think that's the Burrow draft. That's the Garrett draft. That's
was Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, top 2 picks. No quarterback in that.
Right.
Kenny Pickett went 21st or 20th, which is where he was slated to go, folks. Somebody on the message board today from yesterday's show talked about, Kenny Pickett was overdrafted. Nobody, GMs have said that he was a 3rd-round pick. That's not what the pre-draft stuff was saying.
No.
Go back and look. Google it.
Right.
Google 2022 pre-draft rankings, and Kenny Pickett will be in the first round somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I vividly
Everybody
remember.
had him there.
Right. I mean, he was not a premier
In fact,
prospect.
a lot of people also had Malik Willis there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it was a shock on draft day how few went when they went.
But this draft is not that.
No, I don't think so.
Pickett wasn't a top 10 pick, although some people had him there too.
Right. Because he's first quarterback. I mean,
he was the first quarterback.
Right,
yeah. To me, it's more like the 2016 draft where Goff and Wentz went number 1 and 2.
Okay.
Bosa went 3, and then
there was Ramsey and
Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Ramsey, Ronnie Stanley.
I might like those non-quarterbacks better than this group.
Yeah,
but it's in that neighborhood.
There were 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And then
Elliott's the Genty.
Paxton Lynch was the next guy. He went at 26,
mm-hmm.
which I could see happening this year.
And even Goff and Wentz, like several months before the draft, Wentz was not a household name or considered even a surefire first-round pick.
He was a North Dakota State guy.
Right. I mean, it was Senior Bowl. It was the process. And I don't think he got pushed up artificially. I mean, the league knows these guys and scouted them, of course.
Yeah.
And the media is always going to be a little behind, of course. But I also think that Goff isn't the first pick in every draft either.
Yeah.
That the prospect version.
He wasn't
not
a
what he
special
developed.
talent.
Not a special talent.
Yeah.
He wasn't a super athlete or anything like that.
But you got a running back up there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have Ezekiel Elliott versus Genty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In that neighborhood, right.
That's comparable. Couple of tackles that
Carter versus Bosa's in the same neighborhood.
Jack Conklin was strictly a right tackle. Does he go in the top 10 every year? Probably not.
He wouldn't have last year.
Right.
That tackle class.
He went 8th overall that year. A bunch of edge rushers, cornerbacks,
mm-hmm.
Those kind of guys. Laramie Tunsil went 13th, but there was a reason for that.
That was a mask incident, that was frowned upon then a little more than nowadays. Right?
Yeah.
But he would have went high.
Yeah. But
high.
I see what you did there.
That was an accident, but made me chuckle.
Also with the wide receivers.
Okay, who's in that class?
The first wide receiver taken that year was Corey Coleman.
Was that the Coleman year?
Corey Coleman at 15. The Browns could have taken any receiver. It was a bad mm-hmm. receiver draft. But they took Corey Coleman 15th.
That's like Will Fuller.
Will Fuller went 21st. Josh Doxson went 22nd.
All terrible.
Laquan Treadwell went 23rd.
One thing, like I always talk about and kind of joke, but maybe someday I'll do it. There'll be a book of NFL scouting history. That was an era where the spread offenses and like Corey Coleman ran like 2 routes. And there were times he didn't even run a route because they wanted to play so fast they didn't want to tire him out. He would just stand there.
Yeah.
And they'd hold up a Mickey Mouse sign or whatever, or Donald Duck. I mean, like, I don't think the NFL knew how to scout that. They just knew that he was fast with size and made some big plays, but his game didn't translate at all. And Treadwell had some of that, and so did one of the other receivers you just mentioned. I forget which one it was. Not Fuller. Fuller was just fast. And
Doxson was the other one.
Doxson was like that too, right?
Yeah, the TCU. All those guys out of those Mickey Mouse offenses.
Big 12, put up 50 points a game. The league didn't know how to handle them.
I'm just looking here. Sterling Shepard in the second round.
He might have been the best receiver in the draft.
Well, Michael Thomas was a second-round pick.
Okay, yeah.
Which shows you how quickly he fizzled out.
Well, his problem was he didn't run fast enough.
Yeah.
He ran like a 4.57.
Tyler Boyd was in that draft.
Okay.
So, I mean, there were some receivers in that draft who had success, but the first-round guys didn't.
No, they didn't.
Just looking at that first round overall, Goff and Wentz went 1 and 2. Bosa was 3.
Which way I thought you were going with this is Sanders might not be the second or third best player in this draft, but I think there's a chance he goes 2 or 3.
Yeah. Right. Ezekiel Elliott went 4. Jalen Ramsey 5. Ronnie Stanley 6. DeForest Buckner 7.
Ended up being a real good pick.
Jack Conklin went 8th. Leonard Floyd 9. Eli Apple 10. Eli Apple was a top 10 pick in this.
Yeah. Ohio State looks apart, ran well.
Still in the league.
Yeah,
he's hung around,
never lived up to that. I mean, he never even had a good year.
Vernon Hargreaves at 11.
He was a cover 2 guy. Didn't run well.
Sheldon Rankins at 12.
Still in the league and is okay, but not special.
Tunsil at 13.
Would have went much higher, of course.
Carl Joseph at 14. 15 was Coleman. 16 was Taylor Decker.
Yeah, which has been solid.
Yeah. Keanu Neal was 17.
Not great.
Ryan Kelly was 18. Shaq Lawson, 19. Deron Lee, 20. Fuller, Doxson, Treadwell. William Jackson went 24.
Okay.
The Steelers took Artie Burns at 25.
Steelers ended up with a handful of these dudes.
With actually, Artie Burns is still in the league.
He signed somewhere yesterday.
Yeah, he signed Miami.
Yeah, that's where we grew up at. Yeah,
10th year in the league.
I don't know if he's gonna. It is shocking he's still around, right?
Paxton Lynch went 26 to Denver.
Also ended up in Pittsburgh. It was like 5 of these dudes ended up as Steelers.
Kenny Clark at 27.
That's a success.
Joshua Garnett to San Francisco at 28.
Wow.
Oof. Robert Ndiche.
Yeah, there was off the field stuff with him too.
Yeah,
crazy and work ethic stuff.
29 to Arizona. Carolina took Vernon Butler, and at 31, Jermaine Ifedi went.
That's a pretty bad draft.
Yeah,
I mean, there's like 5 hits.
Right.
I mean, Wentz and Goff were fine, especially Goff. And Wentz fizzled out, but he had his moment. But all in all, and the guys at the top weren't bad. The Ramsey,
the top
Elliott's,
10 was
right.
fine.
The blue chip guys were
Yeah.
pretty obvious. Bosa, those guys all had good careers.
But
not a good group.
Not a great group. No.
I'm not sure there's a whole.
Now
Famer
Chris
in that group.
Chris Jones went in the second round that year, which brings me to the defensive tackle stuff. Like this was a above average defensive tackle draft.
Rankins, and I mean there were guys that were good prospects, whether they pan out or not.
I mean, Ashawn Robinson went in the second round. Jerron Reed went in the second round. These guys are still around.
Those Bama guys lasted, yeah.
But a lot of the high profile positions, wide receiver, quarterback, kind of a
fizzle
cornerback
out,
even.
Right. So I mean, it's hard to compare classes because they're not ever going to be apples to apples.
Right.
But there are trends, and like I think we'll look at last year's and say this might be one of the best quarterback classes ever. I mean, I know it's early, and some of those guys' careers will go south, but the fact that there was tackles too, I mean, just premium positions last year, and Roma Dunze is your third receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, Harrison and Neighbors, and I mean, there was just so many good dudes that we didn't have a defensive player go until Dallas Turner. I mean, like, I think that'll be a historic draft.
Well, and I think when you look at that, what can we learn from that draft? It was the big guys who have hung around the longest.
Even Conklin and
I mean, Decker at 16.
Decker, I was going to say, right?
Okay, that's good. Kelly is still in the league.
No, he's had a good career. Yeah.
Yeah.
They may not be Hall of Famers.
Sheldon Rankins at 12. He's still in the league. Kenny Clark.
Clark's a major success.
Yeah. Vernon Butler, Jermaine Ifedi is still in the. These guys are still in the league.
Those guys hang around, even if they're not worthy of a first-round pick. They end up retiring with a lot of millions in the bank and a lot of years under their belt.
Yeah, I mean the first pick of the second round was Emmanuel Ogbah.
Okay. He's had
a
decent career.
Yeah, been around.
Superstars, but if they're still in the league now, they've done something right.
They've done something to stay in the league because half the guys in that first round aren't still in the league.
No, right. And certainly weren't
really
worthy of
didn't.
first-round picks.
Yeah. I mean, Corey Coleman played 27 career games. 27.
I mean, it also goes
you were
to
the
show
15th pick in the draft.
I urge people to do this. I mean, go to drafthistory.com, pull up any draft that's kind of in the books, that you know who's the hits, who's the misses, not the last 5 years. And you might be a little less critical of, man, Kevin Colbert's last years were terrible, or, boy, the Steelers can't draft this position, or the draft is not as successful as you think. I mean, I'm still a huge believer in drafting being more important than free agency, or I'd rather have draft picks than money. But, I mean, you look at, like, some of the best Colbert drafts, it's still 3 starters. I mean, that's a really good draft.
You get 3 starters out of a draft. And I'm talking not immediate starters. I'm talking
they end up
2-3 years down the road.
Right. Foundational.
You had a good draft.
Yeah, and it doesn't quite add up.
And I also think you also have to look at the team as well. Like 3 starters on a team that goes
on the Patriot team,
on a team that wins 10 games is much different than 3 starters on a team that goes 2-14.
Yeah. Not to mention the team that won 10 to 12 games, often where Kevin was picking, and you add 3 starters drafting late to a team that didn't need 18 starters.
Right.
I mean, like some of the bad teams.
Yeah. It's
I mean, you get a 4th round pick that you get 4 years out of in their contract, and he's okay. isn't a miss.
No. Paxton Lynch played 5 career games. 5.
What?
He played in 5 career games.
Really?
Yep.
How does that happen?
Nobody ever felt good enough about him to make him the starter.
He didn't play more than that?
Nope. I'm just Robert Ndiche played 38 career games. Josh Garnett, who was San Francisco's pick at 28, played 25 games.
I would say he had like the most nondescript career of anyone in that round.
Yeah. I mean,
again, I urge people, even if you just want to do Steeler drafts, look at the last 30 of them and really look at the picks and be like, man, the hit rate's not as good as you think. Or just take 2015, 2020 if you want, and just look at the first round and be like, man, a lot of teams missed. Yeah.
It happens.
Or you just get a little bit out of them or, injuries or whatever.
Yeah, there's all kinds of reasons why guys fail in the draft. And, sometimes it's not the player, it's opportunity.
Yeah.
It's, the scheme doesn't fit.
Sometimes they get drafted to do one thing, and then the whole coaching staff gets fired, and that kind of thing
happens as
all
well.
the time
And you get swept out with the old. But I just see some similarities there between that 2016 draft and what we have upcoming.
No, I think you're right. I hadn't thought of that, but I do think there's a chance you see 2 quarterbacks drafted pretty high,
and a bunch of defensive linemen.
The early picks seem pretty safe.
And there's no receiver, which we've seen receivers go high. Again, Coleman went 15.
Coleman's funny that he's
that
first
seems
one.
about the right range for where the receivers start to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, did McMillan run yet?
Yeah,
it was in the 4.4s.
It was a 4.48 on their track.
Yeah, which isn't as great. We were talking about that yesterday.
Which probably is 4.55 somewhere in that range.
Indy yeah. Which is what he looks
it's
like.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's what he looks like. But people talk about him like 4 to the Patriots.
I think that's out the window.
I don't see that. I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he'll be receiver 1.
I don't think he will be for me. I
I
was teetering before that. I wanted to wait and see how he ran, because if he went out and ran a 4.42 or something in his pro day, like, okay, he's fast enough.
I didn't quite pull the trigger on flopping him and Golden in my ranks, but they were due 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And next time around, I probably will. But Golden could be Coleman, too. I mean, none of them are superstars, in my opinion. It's a better class, I would say, than that. I mean, Will Fuller and Treadwell. Treadwell was slow.
Josh Doxson was.
Yeah. He
ran fast.
Ran fast, and he had like a 48-inch, or not 48, like a 45-inch vertical.
Yeah.
And they just used to throw him jump balls, and he'd go get them like crazy at TCU.
81 career catches.
People caught on to that pretty quick. Yeah.
81 career catches.
Couldn't get open, right.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And, Matt, I thought now that we're a little over a week into the free agency period here.
Boy, it feels like longer. Wow.
Let's take a look here specifically at some of the defensive tackle contracts that were signed. And you tell me if yay or nay if you'd have been in on this if you were the Steelers.
Right, because I assume you're bringing this up because I think we talked about it yesterday. Like, if by chance they don't land a big free agent, big money quarterback, been nice to have that money for Allen, Hargrave, whatever. And I had some interest in those dudes. Don't get me wrong. We brought up Godshaw at one point, but there is a price point here. What's it worth? Now, I will say, and I know I saw you on Twitter today. We talked about this yesterday. Talking about contracts is harder than ever because inflation is so rapid. It's insane.
Crazy. The money being thrown around this year, again, you're paying Dollar General. You're at the Dollar General shopping,
right.
But you're paying Walmart prices, which is vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
So Oso Odighizuwa, I'm looking here at this from on the 33rd team. They just have them in order.
Oh, okay.
And
I assume that's
yes. I don't know how they determined the order, but this is the order that they have them. Oso Odighizuwa re-signed with the Cowboys, 4 years, $80 million. Didn't get to the really free agency. He wanted to go back. They wanted him back. They gave him $20 million a year to come back.
Yeah. I mean, that was a franchise tag for a day just to buy time situation. I don't even know he's an above-average starter.
This thing keeps.
I mean, I would say middle of the road starter to above with some upside. And they're not that hard to find. They're not like offensive tackles, or, especially someone at his level. He's a 3-technique type guy. All these are going to be too much. Don't get me wrong. But there might be one or two I'd be like, oh, I understand it. I'm having a hard time understanding that one.
This page keeps reloading on me here.
Yeah, sometimes their site gets a little goofy, too.
Jumping
There's a
up
lot
on
of pop-ups.
Yeah.
I
think it's all the pop-ups. So the next one on here is Milton Williams. 4 years, $104 million with the Patriots.
That's like 27 per, which is
26.
26? I was thinking he was at 27. I wasn't doing math.
Still $26 million for Milton Williams, who, again, good player.
Yeah.
Not a great player.
Ascending player. I like him a lot. He was a phenomenal tester that you knew was going to be a project. They developed him along. And basically him and Jordan Davis would swap opposite Carter, who never came on the field. And Williams is better than Davis. And his skill set's harder to find.
$26 million a year better?
And they just won a Super Bowl, so you get a little bump for that. But no, if I'm the Steelers, I'm not giving them $26 million. And the thing is, though, the Patriots had to spend on something. They still have $100 million cap space.
I get it for them. But
for them, right. I don't even know if it's a bad signing for them.
You
but
couldn't
is he
shop
worth
in
that
that
money?
out.
No. Oh, no. The Steelers couldn't shop in that out, no.
Jonathan Allen, good player.
Good player.
3 years, $60 million.
Yeah. I wonder how much that's guaranteed.
What is he, 31?
And descending. He'd have been a nice pickup at 14 or 15.
Yeah, right. Which is what it probably should have been.
2-year 35 with 20 guaranteed or something like that. Okay, but that's a pretty big commitment to a guy that Washington, well, this is kind of a side note, maybe we'll get to him. Washington cuts him and signs a worse player.
We'll get to it.
Which I think is one of the worst deals in all free agency.
Tershawn Wharton signed with the Panthers. 3 years, $45 million. They thought they had Milton Williams.
Right.
And the Patriots came in and said, oh, no, here's some more money.
Just take whatever you want.
Yeah.
We need to get whoever we can.
Tershawn Wharton, $15 million a year.
Pretty average guy.
The Steelers are paying, that's basically what the Steelers are paying Cam Hayward, $15 million a year.
And they're not even close to one another.
Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett got cut by Atlanta and signed a 3-year, $43.5 million deal to go to the Bears.
There's no way he sees all three.
No,
But she probably knows that. But he's a declining player. That's like the worst pass rushing team in the league that cuts you, and that's your specialty.
He hasn't been good the last 2 years.
Right. He's the guy that relies on quickness and leverage, and he just doesn't get off the ball like he used to. And
Javon Hargrave, 2 years, $30 million. He's 32, coming off a torn.
That's what I was going to say. He's older than you think, folks, and he's coming off a major injury. And the end
I would have
of
been
Philly,
interested in bringing Javon Hargrave back, but not at $15 million a year.
I'm going to say 12. I'd consider it. But, again, I don't know that he's a difference maker now. He'd be a nice piece, but is he a build-around type of guy? Definitely not.
Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yeah, that's a bad one, too.
2 years, $29 million.
Yeah.
Again, you released Ogunjobi. The Steelers released Ogunjobi because his cap hit was $13 million.
Right.
These guys are blowing
Way
by
past that, right. He's only a run stuffer and wasn't much of one last year.
Right. Other than that.
Usually those guys hang around and last, but you're also usually like $5 million just to rent a run stuffer.
Yeah.
Jerron
Reed, who's like 34 years old.
He kind of always just hangs around, yeah.
2 years, $22 million.
It's bad. It's not atrocious.
It's not like some of these other ones.
Right. He'll get you 3 sacks a year.
Yeah.
He'll have some moments. And he'll be with another team in a year,
B.J. Hill, re-signed with the Bengals, 3 years, $33 million.
He was more the problem than the answer last year. Again, he's not terrible. He would start for most teams, kind of. You'd be 60% snap guy for most teams, and you'd try to draft over him.
Right.
That's what he is.
Puna Ford, who's
one I liked, but he's different.
A very specific kind of player.
Right.
Got 3 years, $27.6 million from the Rams.
That's actually kind of funny to me because myself included, the league has been prejudiced against Poona Ford forever.
Because he's 5'10".
Because he's just tall, but
Yeah.
he's really hard to block. And I looked at like the Chargers D tackles last year at this time, like, who are these guys? And they played well because he's hard to block.
He didn't necessarily fit in the Steelers' defense.
Oh, no, he wouldn't be a fit here at all.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's a Rams upfield.
He's a
Fisk.
4-3.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to use him like Fisk, right? But it's a nice pickup for them. That's a contract I understand at least.
DJ Jones.
He was a name at pre-free agency. I said, at the right price, I would consider him at like $8 million.
3 years, $39 million.
Right.
That's not the right price.
No, all he does is stuff the run, and he's good at it. But I thought, you can then groom a nose or whatever.
Yeah. Draymond Jones, 1 year, $10 million.
And a year ago, Seattle, or 2 years ago, Seattle signed him to huge money, which he never lived up to. They cut him. He's not hard to find either.
Malik Collins got 2 years, $20 million from the Browns.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, they're so light on the D-line, they had to add something. But he's another – a lot of these guys are rent-a-players. I mean, These are all, you borrow – have them for a year or two.
Javon Kinlaw.
That's the worst one.
3 years, $45 million for a below-average player?
I would
Average
say
player?
I don't think he's a starter.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be very uncomfortable with him as a starter. Former first-round pick with crazy tools. I mean, like super long arms, 6'6", first guy off the bus, but not really good at football.
Now, maybe he was miscast in their defense, and but
He was miscast with the Niners and the Jets because this is his third team.
Yeah.
And the project isn't projecting yet.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the worst contracts in free agency, to be honest with you.
I mean, some of these other guys enter. You're looking at some 1-year deals, 2-year deals, but it's less than $10 million. But they're also less than $10 million a year players.
And that's in a offseason where everyone knows the D tackle draft class is
great,
much better than ever. I
Yeah.
mean, much better than average for sure too. And they're still handing out those deals. And I don't think there's a shortage of those guys like there is tackles. Like I understand Dan Moore's deal or Jalen Moore's deal even more than half of those. What other tackles do I have to pick from? All those guys, you can kind of shake them up and put them in a bag, and if I got one of them, I'd be like, okay, it'd be the Ogunjobi role or whatever.
Not at $15 million a year.
Right. I mean, like they're not special though.
Well, I mean, the Bills
hard to find.
The Bills signed Ogunjobi 1 year, $8.3 million, without knowing that he's going to be suspended for this first 6 weeks.
They were a little hasty, I think, too. I mean, he got picked up it felt
pretty
like
quickly.
a second after the Steelers let him go. Right. I mean, some of his stuff's injury too.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a history,
but that's
not many Wednesday.
A lot of these guys, really.
Yeah, it's true too. He's not alone on that at all.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys have something. I mean, you play 10 years in the league.
Of course.
You're going to have some stuff that's happened.
And he's not like Hargrave coming off a major injury.
Right.
Like last time we saw him, or he missed significant time and didn't come back and show us yet,
Yeah.
Now, that market's kind of yucky shopping right there.
Calais Campbell is still there.
He's real unique, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if he would even say yes to half the teams out there, or is he contemplating retirement right now?
He can pick and choose where he wants to go. Otherwise,
and he probably could be like, I'll do it after mini camp and into training camp and whenever I feel like it. Right.
Raekwon Davis is still out there.
Yeah.
Just a guy. DeMarcus Walker. Fadakasi.
He was interesting 3 years ago.
Yeah. Austin Johnson, the same thing. He was interesting 3 years ago.
Right. I mean, some of those guys coming off their first contract were interesting.
John Jenkins. Benito Jones.
Right.
Like this is where this is what it is now.
One name, and this goes back to our long conversation yesterday about free agency is getting harder and harder to improve your team. The Raiders kept their nose tackle type. He's not a big name dude. I forget him. I think Walker's his last name. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's a quality player that they didn't go crazy to keep. They signed him right before free agency, stuck around. He's going to be next to Wilkins. He'll give you 3 or 4 sacks a game, and he's a load to move in the run game.
A year, you mean?
Yeah. A year, right. And there's a
Adam
couple.
Butler?
Yes, Butler.
But he got 3 years, $16.5 million. It's okay. It's
right.
Not, it's $5.5 million a year. Okay.
Right. I would say that's the kind of deal. That's the kind of deal. I was like, oh, that makes sense. If he would have hit the open market, I would have given him that. but not.
If he'd have hit
15.
the open market in this market, he probably
That's
gets
what I'm saying. Right. He would have got 12.
3 years, 25.
Right,
you know?
right.
3
He
years,
might have got
30.
12 per, right.
Yeah.
Because he's got good tape. He's not crazy old,
He's probably looking at this going, I might fire my agent.
I think there's a handful of those guys. I keep coming back to, I'm bad with names right now, Alaric Jackson, the left tackle for the Rams. If he doesn't sign before free agency, and he's going to get more than Dan Moore,
Yeah.
I think he got like 13. I mean, he got way less than Dan Moore. He's better and never hit the open market.
Well, let's take a look at that market because we both agree that the Steelers should be in that market somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's still out there, Cam Robinson.
I'm not sure why on him. I mean, at least he could play, and he's been a starter in 2 places.
Is he asking
not a
for
good
more
one.
money than
Probably.
does he have an injury? I don't know.
I mean, I'm not saying anyone should give him 20, but I'm shocked that he hasn't latched on somewhere.
Jedrick Wills.
That interests me, but there might be more. There might be more going on there. Like
Yeah.
I know him and the Browns had a falling out, and he was kind of a healthy scratch at the end.
Well,
But he's got a
they
lot
said
of
he was a healthy
ability.
scratch. He had an injury before that. Did he have
Yeah.
surgery? I don't know.
And I think he had an injury like a year or two ago, and his play has dropped since that point. But he's a high pedigree, 9th pick in the draft type of guy that if he wants to play for $3 million a year, I mean, is that? I don't even know what you'd offer him.
I don't know either.
Yeah,
He's not. He probably doesn't want to come in though to compete for a job.
No, I want him as a third guy.
Right.
I mean, ideally, and I don't mind spending.
But he probably thinks he's still a starter somewhere.
Probably. And from what I remember, he's one of those right tackle at Bama, moved to left tackle in the pros. So if he's your Steeler third guy, could he do both? But is he willing to do both?
Right.
Do you think he's better than he is? He might,
Tyron Smith, left tackle only. He's
Calais Campbell.
Calais Campbell.
Yeah,
Same
right. If he wants to play well, and
George Fant.
he's been on 100 teams and around the league a million. He's right tackle only, I
Yeah.
think.
Joseph Noteboom.
It's not the worst thing I ever heard.
He would be one I'd be interested
Yeah,
in.
yeah. I mean, I think he's played both, but I know he has left tackle experience. I mean, he's better than some of those. I'm not making fun of Raven Clark, but they've picked up those guys.
Guys hang around forever.
Those guys hang around forever. Noteboom's better than that level player.
Yeah. Dylan Radens.
He's not very physical.
He was
though.
visiting somebody today.
Was he?
I think Seattle.
He's really scheme specific.
Yeah.
He moves well. I mean, if you run a lot of outside zone, which the Steelers do, but he's not real physical. He's lean.
Jermaine Ifedi.
He was in that draft class we were just talking
We
about.
just talked
He's around
about, yeah.
forever. He's a
First round
mercenary at
draft
this
pick.
point too.
Yeah.
He'll be in the league, but that just screams what the O-line shortage is going on right now.
Kendall Lamb.
Mm.
And the last guy on here is Landon Young.
I don't know who that is.
But some of these contracts these guys have signed, like Morgan Moses got 3 years, $24 million. Patrick McCarry,
I actually think that's fine.
3 years, $37.5 million for Patrick McCarry, who's
He might not be a tackle.
who's
though.
older than you think.
Yeah.
Josh Jones got 1 year, $4 million. Dan Skipper re-signed with the Lions, one year for 1.3. Kelvin Beachum still getting $4 million
Good for him,
a year.
by the way.
Great for
I
him.
mean, yeah. He's not like the other ones where it's like he's just sticking around because he's no good. He's had a good career.
The Browns signed Cornelius Lucas, 2 years, $6.5 million.
These ones don't bother me as much.
Yeah.
I mean, they're $3-4 million. I mean, just because you have to have a tackle, a backup.
James Hudson got $12 million over 2 years with the Giants.
There's not much good tape out there.
Matt Pert re-signed with the Broncos, 2 years, $7 million. Chuma Edoga, I should say, signed with the Jags, 2 years, $7 million. Larry Borum still hanging around. He got 2.5 from the Dolphins. But at the top of that,
I mean, the top stuff's crazy.
$20
Those last
million,
5
$20 million,
names you
$20
mentioned
million.
Yeah.
Jalen Moore got 15.
Mm-hmm.
Moses got 8.
I'm cool with that just because it's the Patriots and they had to spend their money. It's kind of the Milton Williams conversation. At least I'm going to draft O-line like crazy. Give me the adult in the room that comes to work every day. He's a right tackle.
But to your point, Alaric Jackson, 3 years, $57.75 million before free agency started. He could have gotten well over 20.
Oh, he left 20 on the table over 3 years. Easily. Probably 20 guaranteed.
It's just not a good pool to be
You never want to shop in that
shopping
pool.
in.
Right. And I know it doesn't seem like much, but like when you sign Thornhill or even one more D lineman like they have. A couple of these small signings they've made lately might allow you to draft a third or fourth round tackle that you hadn't planned on before, and then you don't ever shop in those waters.
Right. You
just don't keep me out of those waters. There's sharks everywhere in those waters.
Yeah, just keep churning those guys and seeing maybe.
And one of them turns into a guard or,
Right.
You mentioned yesterday. Some of them might be your sixth lineman for 4 plays a game. Okay. Play a lot in the preseason.
Absolutely. But let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley here with the Matt Williamson. And there are other podcasts out there.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty. I remember back in the day when there was like mine and then 2 others back in the day. And what the heck's a podcast? Right?
Yeah. Well, Cam Hayward has his own podcast, Not Just Football, with Cam Hayward. And today he said that he just wants this quarterback situation. He's kind of like the rest of us. He just wants the quarterback situation to be done one way or the other and he's ready to move on.
Yeah, and obviously that ties into Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's no secret at this point. And to me, Aaron Rodgers has every right to take as long as he wants.
Sure, he's making a lifetime decision.
No question.
He could retire. He could just
retire,
say, I'm done.
He could walk the earth.
Yeah.
Whatever he wants to do. Little Pulp Fiction reference for our friend Justin, who's finally jumped on board.
Yeah.
So if he wants to roam the earth, do whatever you want. If you want to throw footballs for the Vikings or Giants, you're allowed, whatever. But there's also a courtesy involved too, and other people are obviously waiting on you. Both can be true.
Right.
And frankly, he shouldn't care what me, you, and our listeners think, but it makes it easier for a new team to move on if they have answers sooner than later. I mean, this is a moving train, as we always say. And I don't know exactly what Cam said.
I understand. We're 8 days into free agency.
Right.
Really, not even 8 days.
Which seems like
tomorrow
nothing,
will be the first week officially of free agency. Everybody gets excited about the early signing period. That's the early legal tampering period. Free agency didn't start until 4:00 on
the
Wednesday.
league year is 8 days old.
Yeah.
Which you put it that
right
way,
now
it's like
6 years old.
6 days
6
old.
days old.
Right. And you put it that way, it's like, what are we all in a huff about? But 29 teams have their quarterback, and there's a couple that don't. And
I don't even know if it's 29.
I don't say I'm Giants. I would say is a no. Steelers don't.
The Giants don't. The Steelers don't. The Titans don't. The Browns don't.
Might. I was giving the Titans credit just to say that he's in college right now.
As we sit here right now, they do not have.
No, they don't.
They're not going back to what they have.
No, but their world's a little different because they have their choice of the litter from, but still
the draft. But as we sit here right now, they don't.
But yeah. And they need to know. I mean, it's because at that position, it's not. I don't have my left guard. I mean, it's just.
At the same time, nobody's doing anything right now.
Right.
There are no football-type activities going on other than guys training on their own.
Right.
OTAs don't start for a couple of weeks.
If Rodgers would have signed to the Steelers or Giants or whatever 5 days ago, yeah, he'd have their iPad and their playbook, and he'd be learning, and maybe he'd be in touch with Pickens and Metcalf or come up for a throwing session, or maybe, who knows. Or maybe he'd be on vacation, which is also perfectly fine because they have busy lives too. I mean, they're allowed to vacation. They have millions of dollars they can spend however they want, et cetera. No, you're right. I mean, he's not in Egypt during minicamp or whatever. And there's no reason to even get mad at him. He has every right in the world.
He's making a decision.
Right.
This is, do I want to play another year? Do I want to play for this team? Do I want to play for that team?
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
I want none of the above. I don't know. Right. And it's a big decision.
Now, one of the things that is out there, I think there's a misconception about. And it involves Russell Wilson and his joining of the Steelers last year.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a big story on this that ended up being a program piece for one of the games. And so I talked to Russell Wilson, I talked to Cam Hayward, I talked to T.J. Watt, I talked to Minkah Fitzpatrick about the process a year ago at this time. How did that take place?
Yeah.
I think there was a perception out there that Watt and Hayward and Fitzpatrick all called Russell Wilson to recruit him to be a Steeler.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what happened.
Okay.
He called them
Okay.
to let them know that he, A, wanted to join the Steelers because, and B, he wasn't coming in here to take over the locker room or anything like that. He wanted to be a part of this because he thought they had a chance to win.
And I don't know
And
if
he
you know,
wanted to call the team leaders to.
did the Steelers reach out to him before that, or don't you know?
They had spoken.
Okay, which they should speak to every agent.
And before he made a decision whether he came here or not, he reached out to those guys. Hayward told me that he spent over an hour on the phone with Russell Wilson just talking. And they had a relationship, Walter Payton Man of the Year.
I would say these guys all know each other now. I mean, they've similar agents.
Yeah, Watt and Wilson are both Wisconsin guys, so they had crossed paths at different times. So they talked. Minka had it wasn't as long of a talk as he had with Hayward.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Minka Fitzpatrick. It wasn't a long talk, but he talked and said, "Hey, I'm just coming in to be one of the guys."
So I would imagine
they didn't call him though.
You might have a better feel for this than me, but Fields isn't the oldest guy out there, but I'm sure he has somebody he knows on the Jets. And before he put pen
his
to
star
paper,
wide receiver.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's
you think that had something
right.
to do with him signing there?
You don't think he reached out to Garrett Wilson?
You think they talked a little bit? Yeah.
But I was going kind of different direction. Like if you're Rodgers or Wilson and you've been around the league as long as them, you're absolutely calling the team leaders, even if you've never spoken to Minka or Watt in your life. You're like, hey, it's Aaron, you know.
Yeah.
Or
I met you at the Pro Bowl 3 years ago.
Right.
You know.
Or my agent gave me your number. You know, I mean,
or maybe a sharing agent.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, and they can get in touch with each other. I've been around the block. How's life there? How close do you think you are? Let's be honest with me, and you know, and that's what they should do.
But I don't. That's not happening right now with Aaron Rodgers.
Doesn't sound like it.
Because Hayward said he said I ain't doing no darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. If you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to be a part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin off my back.
And that's not saying, Aaron, we don't want you or I hate you.
Absolutely not. Some people are taking it that way.
I know, right.
He says, no, he's saying, look, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to be a part of what we got here, sign up for it. If you don't, you want to go to the Giants, you want to go to the Vikings, wherever you want to go, fine. That's your choice. But
we're a pretty transparent organization. We've been doing things this way, and it's been successful. And if that's not something you're going to be a part of, so be it. Move on. But
we need to know.
We need to know. That's the thing. Again, Rodgers has every right to take this months if he wants. But the Steelers also have every right to say, hey, if you don't tell me by the end of the week, we're done. You know, because moving train.
It's a moving train, and they want to know.
They got to know.
We get asked about this all the time. How many times do you think Cam Hayward gets asked who the Steelers quarterback is going to be?
Right.
And he doesn't know.
I'm not sure anybody knows.
No.
Right. I'm not sure Rodgers knows.
One person knows.
Right.
One person knows what's in his mind, and that's Aaron Rodgers.
And he still has apparently not made his mind up. Do you think he'd take the Vikings, though, over the Steelers or Giants?
If he
takes the Giants over the Steelers, it's just money.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to move his house or whatever. The Vikings one, to me, is kind of weird.
I don't see it because at some point the Vikings are going to want to play the 10th overall pick in last year's draft.
Right. I mean, like, if I were him and I thought, I could definitely make a case that I have a better chance to win there than here. Not the Giants, obviously. And it's an appealing situation. It's throwing Justin Jefferson looks great. You know, you're very familiar with the division, and you've played against that organization 8,000 times. I just don't know that the Vikings are really equipped to do that, or to rock the boat with his personality when you put him on the bench eventually. Or I don't know. Is he going to see both sides?
Is he going to come in and mentor?
He's not exactly known for
your quarterback of the future,
right?
Who you drafted 10th overall last year.
Now maybe McCarthy's injuries not healed as well as we thought. That would be concerning to me.
But they haven't done anything. Like, they could have kept Daniel Jones.
I would say, but why don't you just give Daniel Jones that opportunity?
Yeah.
Or Darnold for that reason.
Right.
You know,
they could have done either.
Darnold.
They could have done either of those things, and they chose not to. And, oh, by the way, spent like drunken sailors in free agency.
Mm-hmm, that's what I mean, because since then they've spent so much. Now you're going to spend again on Rodgers?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why it doesn't quite add up. Because if you were super concerned about his injury, slap the franchise tag on Darnold, you know?
Or make Daniel Jones an offer he can't refuse. Like, Daniel, you were here, you're our guy.
Mm-hmm. You've been around. Right.
You know.
Yeah, I don't know if Minnesota's real. I think the Giants are very real.
Daniel Jones leaving tells me that they think he's going to be ready for the start of the season.
I assume so.
Otherwise, Daniel Jones just sticks around and says, I'm going to be the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. I got Jefferson. I've got this. I can go out there and be the next Sam Darnold, even if it's over. My first 6 starts of the year look great with these guys, and then they bench me for McCartney. Okay, but I put 6 games of good tape out there with good people.
And I'd rather compete with McCarthy, even if it's a tougher test, than Richardson.
Or if McCarthy's,
because the payout's better.
If McCarthy, let's say he's not ready 6 weeks into the season. If I'm Daniel Jones, I'm going to get all the training camp snaps.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas in Indianapolis,
you're getting 50%.
I'm going to have to split them at best.
And you're going to lose the tie in that battle.
You're going to lose the tie, and they might want to give Richardson more just because. Like, he's our guy.
He needs it.
He's the
That's why
4th
you drafted
overall pick
him,
in the
was to
draft.
feed him reps like crazy. If you start taking them away, then you might
We
as well
don't know
get rid of
anything
them.
to you.
Yeah.
Other than this contract.
Yeah.
Him, we used the 4th overall pick in the draft for.
Yeah. I think no matter any way you spin it, you'd rather go to Minnesota than Indy if you're Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Which tells me that Minnesota feels like McCarthy's going to be okay.
Yeah. The Rodgers part doesn't add up. It would if they wouldn't have spent on all those linemen in the last week. Now I don't know how you swing it,
Yeah. Anyways, let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back with hour number 2 right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley here with the Matt Williamson, and welcome back to hour number 2 of The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And, Matt, Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 3.0 has dropped here.
He's pretty dialed in.
He's dialed in. I don't love his Steeler pick.
All I did was look at his Steeler pick. I was kind of in a rush this morning and just scrolled up to their pick and checked it out. I'm like, But I am curious what he has going in the whole first round.
So he has Cam Ward going number 1 to the Titans.
Okay.
I think that's you can write that.
I think that's pretty close to lock it in. And I wouldn't mind having a conversation with you at some point. If you're the Giants, what could pry Ward away from the Titans?
Nothing.
I'm starting to lean that way too. I mean, nothing reasonable. I've even heard number 3, your second, and next year's first. I think it's still no.
Because the Titans don't have a quarterback right now.
Right. I mean, it'd be sure nice. You might have 2 top 5 picks next year, but you don't know where that lands you. You look at Ward and say, I think that's my franchise guy. I mean, with that second pick, either theirs or the Giants, maybe you get Dart or somebody like that. I mean, everyone's having him go super high now all of a sudden, which I don't quite get, or Shuck or whatever, and you end up with Shador or Hunter or whatever. But I don't know that you can get to one.
Yeah, I don't think
can't offer much more than
they
that.
They haven't
from the
even
Giants.
been rumored.
Not even a little, right? They just are building a line.
They're locked in.
Yeah.
The Browns take Abdul Carter at 2.
Fine. If you were them and you had to pick between Hunter and Carter, which would you prefer?
With their roster makeup, Carter. They've got corners.
They've got corners and receivers good enough.
Yeah.
I think I agree. Although I think in the bubble, Hunter's a better prospect.
The Giants take Shador Sanders at 3.
Yeah. Pull back the curtain. We did a triple take mock today, and I was the only one of the 3 of us that didn't have Sanders going in the top 3. I had him fall into the Saints, and I said on the air, I kind of regret not. And I don't think he's close to being a top 3 prospect, but that doesn't necessarily matter.
It's quarterback.
I think the Browns and Giants ownership is going to say, this is our chance to get a quarterback. You got to get a quarterback.
At 4, the Patriots take Travis Hunter.
And they should love that. I mean, if that guy falls in your lap.
And for them, he probably is a wide receiver.
I would say receiver first for them. Yeah. Unless he fights.
They've gotten nothing at wide receiver this offseason.
No, right.
Jaguars then take Jalen Walker at 5. They take another swing at a edge that.
I mean, that's one position they're good at.
Yeah.
And they got money invested in those guys. I could see. I do think that the league is higher on him than. Like, he's the clear number 2 edge, in my opinion. But the position doesn't add up to me.
No, I don't agree with that one either. At 6, the Raiders take Ashton Genty.
That I could buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I could buy.
7, the Jets take Armand Membo.
That I could also
offensive
buy.
tackle.
I mean, they lost both their tackles
Missouri.
last year.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know they drafted one, but they're a tackle short at the moment.
At 8, the Panthers take Mason Graham, the defensive tackle
Jets
out of
roster is
Michigan.
pretty bad, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, they need a receiver, they need a tight end, they need a defensive tackle, they need another corner. I mean, they're bad. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Mason Graham, Carolina, 8.
Okay. I would just say best defensive player.
At 9, the Saints take Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama.
Wow.
That's
the earliest I've seen him go.
Awfully high for an off-ball linebacker.
It is. I mean, he brings pass rush, but that's pretty high.
At 10, the Bears take Will Campbell out of LSU.
But he'd have to be a tackle for them. I mean, if you just invested in guard, center, guard, so there's no fallback plan of if you can't make it a tackle, we'll just move you to guard.
Right.
I don't like that for them. I don't mind taking no lineman. But
I mean, Genty would have been a natural spot there for them, but he's not available.
Or I would take Membo, and I think his chance of being a tackle are better than Campbell's.
If that were the case, I see the Bears trading out of that spot.
Yeah.
For somebody who wants Campbell.
Yeah. Right. I mean, if it's like Miami, I got a lot of spots for you to fill in, or the Patriots.
Well, what do you always say about DJ's mock drafts?
It's with his ears, not his eyes.
Yeah. So he's trying to get guys into these spots that he's hearing might be first-round guys.
That was my immediate thought with the Jags pick, is the league loves this guy, Walker. Maybe it's not with the Jags, but I want to make sure I get him early in my draft.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
At 11, the 49ers take Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas.
They've lost every which way possible. And I do think Barron goes before the Steeler pick.
Yeah. At 12, the Cowboys take Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas.
It's actually where I mocked him, too. It was my first receiver off the board, even though he wasn't my number one receiver in our receiver ranks. I think Mingo's their number 2 receiver right now, or Tolbert.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another team. You go 2 free agency periods doing nothing. You got a lot of holes, too.
At 13, the Dolphins take Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia.
Well, they lost Holland. Their defense is pretty beat up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think O-line's the obvious choice, but there's nothing on defense they should avoid.
14, the Colts take Tyler Warren, tight end of Penn State.
Pretty chalky, but I don't think he gets there.
At 15, the Falcons take Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan.
I mean, everyone has pass rush, but I think you want Johnson to go in the top 15.
16, the Cardinals take Gray Zabel, offensive lineman from North Dakota State.
Pretty early, but they're like one lineman away from kind of completing that, and they were pretty aggressive on defense in free agency. 17,
the Bengals take Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall.
I urge people to go to ourlads.com and look at their edge, especially if Hendrickson were to get traded. It's like Joseph Asai and nothing else, and he's not really good.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, I know that's definitely
even if they keep Hendrickson, it's still a need.
It's still a need. It's still a need because, I mean, he's not young either, and he's expensive and going to want more. I know that's definitely a landmine spot for a D tackle to go ahead of the Steelers, but I don't know if they can avoid edge.
I think it's an edge.
Right. I don't think the edge is a bigger need for them. They've Chris Jenkins. They invested in 2 defensive tackles. They're going to live with the group they have, probably.
At 18, the Seahawks take Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan.
I could see that. I think there's absolutely going to be.
They need a pass catcher.
I think they have 5 picks on day 1 and 2 combined,
and a bunch of slot receivers,
and they need. This is going to be offense.
They get like 6 slot receivers.
Yeah,
and nobody that plays on the outside.
And their center guard situation's bad too. Yeah.
At 19,
I could see like McMillan ended up there, or Golden, or
Tampa Bay takes Donovan Ezereku, edge rusher out of Boston College.
Okay. I mean, everyone on the planet always has Campbell going there, but he's long gone here, which I guess I could see.
At 20, the Broncos take Amarian Hampton, running back out of North Carolina.
That might be his floor.
At 21, the Steelers take Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Mississippi. I just don't see it. You want to talk about it? Again, I'll go back to the Pickett stuff.
Yeah.
Pickett was not a reach at 20.
Right.
That would be a reach.
I believe so, too. I mean, could he develop into a good starting quarterback someday? Sure. I don't think his tools are overwhelming. I think he's got a good arm.
I think his ceiling is the 18th best quarterback in the league.
I'm on board with that too. I mean, I understand if that were to happen, I would be like, I get where you're coming from. You're taking a swing. But man, I mean, the offense he's in is so different than an NFL offense. And it's not like he's got Richardson tools to develop.
Yeah.
His tools are good, but I don't know. I hear a lot of people say he's only going to be there at 21. I'd be fine with that. Trust me. I don't want to take.
If somebody wanted to trade up to go get him at 21,
right.
Oh, fine.
Maybe the
Give me
Saints would grab him.
Yeah, come up and get it. I'll take a second-round draft pick.
But I would expect nothing out of him in year one.
I'm not taking him with Kenneth Grant on the board. Not happening.
100% not. Right.
22. The Chargers take Tedero McMillan. Let's just go back to that. The Steelers. Here's what he wrote about: the Steelers' plan at quarterback is not completely clear at the moment. Even if they were to land 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, they would still need a long-term option at the position, so they take another swing here with Dart. I don't disagree with any of that.
I mean, the write-up's fine. I just don't love the player.
Except that I don't know that you take the swing here at 21.
No, I'm with you. But again, looking at this through DJ's eyes, using his ears, I bet he thinks Dart's going to be a first-round pick. And where else can you stick him in to make sure you get him in your first? I wouldn't make that pick right now, though.
No.
And maybe I could be convinced in April, but I'm not now.
At 22, the Chargers take Tet McMillan.
Great. Very
wide
different than
receiver out of
McConkey. Right.
23, the Packers take Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky.
Yeah, I still think Jari Alexander could be on the move.
24, the Vikings take Nick Emuari, safety out of South Carolina.
It's funny, I mocked him there, too, with the thought of, boy, Flores would have fun with that piece. And Harrison Smith is very up in age.
At 25, the Texans take Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas.
That's great, but we had this conversation yesterday. Are Banks and Connerly going to last that long when there's such a shortage of tackles? And Simmons, none of those three true tackles get picked until now? I don't know if I'm buying that.
You want a landing spot for Jackson Dart in the first round. The Rams at 26.
That's a good one.
Where they can let him just sit a year or 2 years behind Matthew Stafford and see what happens.
Yeah. They even have Jimmy as the number 2.
But if I'm in the Steelers situation, if I'm drafting a quarterback in the first round, I want him to play at some point. Not right out of the gate.
No.
But at some point, I'm going to want him to play, and
I don't.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't help me do that.
No, and Rudolph's
and I've got Mason Rudolph.
I mean, Rudolph's going to be your 2 on game day. I mean, he's not even going to be active.
If I'm taking a quarterback, it's going to be later in the draft, especially with Kenneth Grant on the defensive tackles. Have barely been. There's been one. You're telling me there's only going to be one defensive tackle in the first 26 picks? I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either. Maybe when it's all said and done, when I do my final 21, Dart is 19, 20,
maybe.
21.
I could see that.
But it would be a disaster that would have to happen to actually pull the trigger on somebody.
All those
that
defensive
late.
tackles will have to be off the board.
Right. I mean, Harmon's already mentioned. He hasn't been mentioned yet. Grant hasn't been mentioned yet. I mean, there's a lot of dudes. I don't know. I don't see it. I understand it. I just don't approve at the moment.
At 27, Derek Harmon goes to the Ravens.
Okay.
Defensive
I think he's going to go somewhere in that neighborhood.
At 28, Michael Williams, a Georgia edge rusher or off-ball linebacker, goes to the Lions.
Yeah. A lot of people are putting edge there.
At 29, the Commanders take Azareye'h Thomas, cornerback out of Florida State.
He's held pretty true that he thinks Thomas is going to sneak into the first round.
At 30, the Bills take Kenneth Grant.
They should be thrilled.
Defensive tackle out of Michigan.
They should be thrilled.
31, the Chiefs take Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of Ohio State.
Okay. Maybe they'd stick him in at guard or whatever. I mean, they paid a tackle. Guard's the need at the moment.
Well, you can always jettison your right tackle, too.
True.
And at 32, the Eagles take Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M.
Oh, I bet they'd love that because they don't need him to be a guy for now. I don't think he gets there that long, and I think whoever does take him is going to be unhappy when it's all said and done, but I don't think he'll get to 32.
I don't think Walter Nolan gets out of the first round.
Yeah, he didn't get mentioned either, huh? Yeah.
I mean, I understand when some of these guys get pushed up that. But
it's hard to narrow it to 32.
In this draft, and I said this today on our video, like last year, our final video, the day of the draft, we had to sit down. You, Mike, and I took turns making
picks. Right.
Yeah,
it wasn't even like consensus.
Every third pick, one of us made the pick.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up getting 26 of the 32 picks. Guys,
the first rounders.
Guys who went in the first round, we got 26 right, which is
not every landing spot was right. Of course, it would have been.
I think we got eight of those or something like that.
First 7 in a row, I think too.
Yeah, but 26 is about average.
I would say it's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean at the end it gets hard.
This year, if you get 24 of the guys
you're doing well.
Who go in the first round are actual first round picks, you're doing really well.
Yeah. And like when I do my mocks, I jot down every name so I don't miss anybody and anyone I think could be first round caliber. And the names I left off
there's like 45 guys that could go in the first round this year.
Like I left Zabel off and I'm like he could have been the Chief. I took the Ohio State guard Jackson instead of Zabel for the Chiefs at 31. And either would have made sense, but I thought Jackson might have to tune it and move the tackle or something. Maybe they'd like him better. But there was a handful of names like, I really don't like leaving these guys off. I had 2 receivers in my first round. I don't think that's going to hold up. I mean, Burden could get in.
He only had 2
I think I guess he did too. Yeah.
He had 2 receivers.
Buka didn't get in. Burden didn't get in. 2 running backs. 3 quarterbacks.
3 quarterbacks, a bunch of edge rushers, which I think is going to happen. But
both safeties I found interesting.
There are also only 3 defensive tackles.
Yeah, without Nolan. Both Michigan guys and Dan Harmon. There could be off-field stuff. I mean, there's rumors of that, but no one seems to confirm or
nobody's
say
saying
what
it is.
Right.
Like
you would think if it was something obvious, we'd all know.
Right. I mean, I've Googled Walter Nolan in arrest. There's nothing out there with the
Yeah.
So, they have better Nexus searches than I do. But
well, no doubt. I mean, they're crazy about it. Like I think I've told the story. Like one of the dudes that used to run next to George Bush's car was our guy that was in charge of that. Like
Max just talked about it when we're on the combine about how they called his grade school principal. What kind of guy was he? Like he was 6.
Fine. He was 8 years old.
Yeah.
He was trained.
He was already 6'5", but he was
and no one messed with him.
But yeah, I mean that's the kind of
I bet we don't get 26 out of 32 though.
No, I mean
to your point. There's a lot of good names on there that are off there.
But
do you think 3 quarterbacks go when it's all said and done?
Potentially. But I think somebody's going to trade back into the first round to make it happen.
That's what I was thinking. Like if you're the Browns or Giants and don't take one at 2 or 3,
you're trading
I
back
think you're
into
going to be super aggressive.
You're going to be aggressive, and they've done that in the past.
Oh yeah.
How many times have they had 2 first-round picks when they had that early second-round pick and they'd move up to go get a quarterback? Happens all the time.
Right. And that I understand a little easier. Like if you end up with Hunter or Carter, and then you come back to 30 to get Dart or even Shuck or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I would understand it.
If the Steelers traded down in this situation to take Dart, I would understand it more.
Me too. I mean, it'd be tough to get nothing out of round 1 or 2 in 2025.
Yeah, nobody is going to help you this year out of your first 2. Oh, you do get, DJ Metcalf this year.
Well, I know, but I mean, there's no true rookies. And I'm not counting Fatanu and Watson, those guys either. But I mean, that's 60-some picks that you don't get anything out of.
I mean, they could look at it like, well, we got these 2 guys back this year who were high draft picks for us that we didn't get anything out of last year. So it's kind of like get the 2 bonus picks. We've talked about that.
We might get a 10-year starting quarterback out of it. I mean, obviously.
And if you feel that way about them, great. But I've heard nothing that says that they do.
If he comes in for a visit, my ears will perk up a little bit more. And I'd be shocked if they didn't have him in for a visit. I just don't see a great prospect there.
Yeah. Quite frankly, Kenny Pickett was a better prospect.
I would say they're similar, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's crazy to say.
I think Dart's, to me, is a second-round pick all day long.
Yeah, I think so, too. Especially because the system he's in, especially the one compared to Kenny was in.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny should be more ready than Dart.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyways, let's get to a break here. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. That was Daniel Jeremiah's Mock Draft 3.0. He'll have more coming out here as we get closer and closer. We're a little more than like 30 days out from the
yeah, no, it's a little over
draft.
a month, right?
Like we're getting close.
Yep.
Anyways,
pro days are happening left and right. And yeah.
He's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. We'll be back with more after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, Eric Edholm has put together power rankings.
Wow. Okay.
Post
free agency, free draft.
Yeah. Power rankings here. A week into this thing. Not even a full week. And we got a new number 32.
Okay.
Who would you guess?
I think the Saints are terrible, but Carr's okay. I don't think they'll put the Browns, nor do I think they're the worst team out there. They're an obvious one I'm missing. I don't think Tennessee.
It's the Tennessee Titans. Down a spot to 32.
But I guess if you do it today, Will Levis is their quarterback. I mean, I guess Rudolph's your quarterback for the Steelers, too. And DeVito's the Giants' quarterback. Not that that's how it's going to end up. I mean, that's why you shouldn't do it now.
But he's looking at what they've spent. And
okay. I don't know if the Titans are that horrible, but they earned the first pick in the draft.
They're the first overall pick in the draft for a reason.
Yeah.
At 31, down a spot, are the New York Giants.
Even if you put Russell Wilson on that team, though, I think they win 6 or 7 games. I don't think they're hideous. You had Holland and Lawrence and Thomas.
But they're picking third this year.
I get it. I mean, they're not great, but I don't know. I think they'll be better this year than last.
It's hard to be worse.
Right.
They won 3 freaking games.
I mean, even put Russell Wilson on the team. I mean, they're gonna have. That's probably like what they'll end up with, something like that.
At 30, down a spot, Jacksonville.
Okay.
They spent a lot in free agency.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just, like, once again, spinning their wheels.
You lose Kirk, you lose Ingram, but you bring guys in, and there's always big changes.
They just move the chairs around on the deck of the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, how's this look?
New coach.
Yeah. A lot of feng shui going on down there.
I mean, this always is. I always say this is the beginning of the season of optimism. It really happens after the draft up until training camp. But I don't know if any of those 3 teams are hideous, the worst teams out there, as bad as like the Patriots were last year, you know.
This one's interesting. Up 3 spots, the Cleveland Browns.
They got a lot of holes, too.
I don't know why you would move them up 3 spots ahead of some of these other teams.
I guess because they kept Garrett.
They had him last year. They're picking second in the draft.
I guess. I mean, when was the last time he put one of these out? Was he assuming Garrett was gone at that point?
They were at 32.
And they didn't have Pickett. I mean, their quarterback situation was worse. It looked like their best player was leaving. I don't know. I'm trying to get in his head why he'd move him up. They still need a lot. I mean, the O-line needs a lot of attention. They don't have any running backs.
28 holding steady, the Saints.
I think they're real bad. But Carr's better than all these quarterbacks.
Yeah. At 27, down 2 spots, the New York Jets.
Oh, I think you make a real strong case for them to even be lower. Like, they got 5 or 6 guys everybody would love to have. And I think Fields is fine. But, like, who's the second wideout and the tight end and the second tackle and the second defensive tackle and the second corner? They're like the most expensive positions in the world, too, that aren't quarterback. I love their 6 or 7 good guys. Man, there's not much else.
26, up a spot, the Raiders.
Getting better. Geno's a legit dude. I mean, that's as big a quarterback jump as any team made.
At 25, up a spot, are the Patriots.
Not yet. They don't have any receivers or linemen.
They've done nothing offensively.
I mean, the D looks good. I mean, I could see it being an above-average defense. I'll buy that, and I'm a May fan. But he's the whole offense right now.
Yeah.
Him and Morgan Moses.
24 holding steady, the Panthers.
Gently trending the right direction. They picked up 4 or 5 defensive starters.
What didn't make sense for them was signing Rico Dowdell.
I know.
How many damn running backs do you need?
I know. Well,
You drafted Brooks last year. He's recovering from his second ACL, but you still have Chuba Hubbard.
I know. Donald was
and
cheap.
You gave him money.
I think Brooks is maybe never plays. I mean, I think that's going to be a tragic story, which is a shame. I have him on a lot of my dynasty teams, too, which doesn't make me happy. But I don't think he plays all year.
At 23, down 3.
I mean, frankly, if I was Dallas, I'd rather kept Dowdell than Javonte Williams. I think he was cheaper, too.
Yeah. 23, down 3 spots, the Colts.
Pretty mediocre with serious quarterback questions.
Yeah. Adding Travarius Ward and Cam Bynum doesn't really do it for me.
No. I mean, the secondary's a lot better shape than it was, but you lost 2 offensive linemen.
Now you're counting on Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about 2 enigmas?
Right. And they're not going to draft one. I mean, it's going to be those
You're
two.
going to have to guess which one's going to play a good game today and then try to start that one.
The brutal thing is 9 out of 10 times when teams take that approach, one guy will start 9 games, one guy will start 8, and they'll win 6.
Yeah.
They'll go back and forth 3 times. It's probably how that goes.
At 22, up a spot, largely because the Colts fell 3, the Cowboys.
They have a lot of holes, too. I mean, yes, Dak comes back, but Parsons isn't even under contract. They need a second lineman. Their running backs are still bad, or a second receiver. They need O-line help. D-tackle's not any better than it was. Parsons isn't under contract. The Overton's hurt.
Zach Martin retired.
Zach Martin retired. Right, and they need at least one lineman.
At 21, down 2 spots, the Falcons.
I think the offense will be pretty good. Defense will probably be how it always is, like bottom of the league in sacks and 2 or 3 good players and a bunch of holes.
At 20, down 2 spots, the Dolphins.
I don't like the way that they're trending at all. They seem to just be getting old doing the same things.
Yeah.
And not replenishing.
I mean, we went and got Alexander Madison.
I know. Like, what'd that do?
You got rid of one old running back to bring in another old running back.
And you drafted Wright last year.
Who's not as good as the old running back that you got rid of.
Yeah, or doesn't fit the system. James Daniels is like the only good thing they did.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's healthy,
At 19, down 2 spots, the Cardinals.
I think they're trending the right way, but they're not super talented. I mean, I like that they added Sweat and starting to get some pieces on defense, but that was not built in Rome wasn't built in quickly,
This one's curious to me. At 18, up 3 spots, the 49ers. They've added nothing this offseason. They've lost like 8 guys.
They're sort of in the Steelers' boat that the guys they lost they knew was coming.
Some of them.
But they didn't add anything.
There's
no DK Metcalf that got added.
No.
Or they're better nowhere. I mean, they're better nowhere than
right.
they were. And they're worse in a lot of spots.
And they won 6 games last year.
And I think they might be not tanking, but punting.
Like, what did they get out of Ayuk this year?
Upcoming year?
Yeah.
I would hope he's back in a big way.
Sometime.
Right.
But maybe not to start the season.
Right. I think the Purdy contract has them really hamstrung. And I think they're just going to kind of eat their Wheaties this year, which isn't how they're built.
No.
Because then McCaffrey's a year older and Trent Williams a year older and Warner's a year older. And
At 17, down a spot, the Seahawks.
The offense is horrible as it's currently constructed.
They get a bunch of slot receivers.
Yeah.
With Sam Darnold throwing.
I think Geno's better than Darnold today. So they got a little worse at quarterback. Maybe not for the big picture. I mean, the quarterback landscape might be better, but
they're younger.
Younger. DK's gone. Lockett's gone. They have no interior line.
Replace him with an even older Cooper Kupp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like their defense a lot.
I get it. Cooper Kupp's a Washington State star and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Why don't you just keep Tyler Lockett?
I think he's pretty shot, too. They gave Kupp decent money, though.
I know. They gave Kupp a lot of money for he might be shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Cooper Kupp was hitting free agency, I'm like, okay, I'd do that for $7 million.
I mean, if I were them, I would strongly consider 2 of those first 5 picks being receivers. Speed guys. You know?
Outside the number guys.
Right.
Guys who can line up outside.
Give me Higgins from Iowa State.
This isn't a great draft for that necessarily.
No, it's not.
I mean,
It's not.
Egg because he's an inside receiver.
I'd look at Golden heavy if I were them, or
Tet McMillan.
Yeah. Higgins.
At 16, up 6 spots. We're falling into this trap again like we did last year, the Bears.
Yeah, they're hard to trust.
Remember last year when we got through all the offseason stuff, they were like 12.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to be the sneaky sleeper team in the NFC this year.
We'll find out quick. I don't know if Caleb Williams is good or not.
They still might be the 4th best team in their division.
I think they are. And I guess they agree. They haven't mentioned the other one yet.
But
yeah. And as much as I like the coach,
what's their division record going to be next year?
1-5, something like that, as it usually is.
Yeah.
Rookie head coaches are hard for me to bank on, even if it's a high pedigree, everyone wanted them type of dude.
Here's the thing.
And a second-year quarterback?
With Ben Johnson. Oh, he did all this stuff, crazy stuff on offense and stuff. He's got no governor now.
Oh, right.
Like maybe Dan Campbell would every once in a while duck his head and say, hey, let's not throw it past the Penei Sewell 3 times, this year. Do it once.
And his head coach also was go for it every 4th down.
Yeah.
I don't know. Were the Bears going to go for it every 4th down?
Yeah, is he going to do that? Is he going to be
Brandon Staley when he went for it every 4th down with the Chargers?
Right. I don't know. Is Caleb Williams going to stop taking sacks just because you upgraded the offensive line for him? Or is he still going to sit back there and pat the football?
Well, he did at USC.
Right.
I mean, I think that's more of a quarterback stat. Right.
That's him.
Now he has no excuse.
Right.
And now you'll know the answer. And I like their O-line moves. I would have done the D-line stuff differently, but it's better than it was.
Yeah.
And the draft should treat them pretty well, but they don't have a lot of picks anymore either. They traded them.
Traded them, for the guards.
Yeah.
At 15, down a spot, the Steelers.
I have no idea where to put them. I mean, I don't envy.
They will have a quarterback.
Of course. And I assume this is not the Rudolph-led Steelers. But even the Rudolph-led Steelers wouldn't be 32 for me either.
No.
I mean, the defense is pretty darn solid.
You got
their holes are drying up pretty quick.
You got two really good receivers on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do something at running. That's again when you look at that mock draft that Daniel Jeremiah did with the Steelers taking a quarterback in the 1st round.
Yeah. Without a second-round pick.
No second-round pick. You want to get a running back out of this draft. You want to get at least one defensive tackle who's a potential starter out of this draft. And you're not picking it again until pick 83.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you can't afford necessarily to take a quarterback at 21.
Again,
there's too much space there.
If it was a move like we did yesterday, where you trade 21 for 40 and 50, I totally get it.
Yeah,
I
right.
totally
That's
get
different.
It.
Now
It's a different premium. You get one more premium pick.
The second round draft pick.
Right.
Not only did you recoup the second round draft pick, now your second round draft pick is higher than where you were picking.
I don't want to wait another year on D-line.
No, you can't.
You can't on D-line.
Can't.
Running back. Okay, if you ended up with a 4th round pick at running back, I'd understand.
Live with that.
I'd understand. Right. In this draft, might be a good player. You know.
He says this. Here's what he wrote. What do we make of the Steelers? They swung a dramatic trade for DK Metcalf, which certainly changed the mojo around this team, but the follow-ups are obvious. Who will throw him the ball?
Mm-hmm.
How did DK Metcalf and George Pickens coexist? Now we wait. Aaron Rodgers is an option, but that's not guaranteed to happen. If not Rodgers, then who? The Steelers have arguably a top 10 defense after adding some reinforcements in the secondary. If Rodgers isn't brought back into the fold, going into the draft with only Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson at quarterback feels like an awfully risky plan. What's the point of having 2 stud receivers if you don't pair them with a commensurately talented passer? As you can see, I'm full of questions for now. Well,
which I understand.
If it's not Rodgers, it will be another veteran quarterback. It's not going to be going into the draft, in my opinion, with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson.
I'd be blown away.
I'd be shocked.
I'd be shocked. Right. But you can't also predict the future if you're him and the deadline is today.
I get it. Yeah. We're looking at today.
As constructed. I mean, if Wilson was the guy 10 minutes before he had to put these in, I'm sure the Steelers would be higher. I don't know how much higher.
They probably don't drop the one spot that he dropped them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they move up a spot.
The one thing I don't agree with, and I'm agreeing with less and less, is how will Metcalf and Pickens coexist? They'll coexist fine.
Yeah.
I mean, they may yell on the sidelines or do something dumb or take a penalty they shouldn't.
You think George Pickens is going to yell at DK Metcalf?
I don't think they're like going to get fights. I mean, I just think that they might be volatile on the sidelines.
That's who they are.
Spike their helmet once in a while or swing at a defensive back or okay. But
They're going to scare the bejesus out of them, too.
I think they're going to coexist pretty well,
Yeah.
run and go routes.
Yeah, they're going to
Deep
scare
posts,
whoever's lining up against the Steelers.
Yeah.
They're going to scare the bejesus out of them.
I mean, there's no doubt they're better at that position now.
Yeah.
And I think their back seven is better than it was last year.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
14, down 4 spots, the Houston Texans. Their offseason has been baffling.
It's been bad. Their defense might be better, and it was a good D. Offense is scary.
Who's blocking for the quarterback?
Scary. Because where are you going to get them?
Yeah, exactly. Where are you getting these guys?
Tunsil didn't work hard.
We went
enough.
over the offensive tackles that are still out there.
None of them are going to be.
Is it going to be Cam Robinson in Houston?
It should be.
That's who it should be.
I mean, and it's still not good enough.
Or Tyron Smith for a year?
Okay, and then you still better draft 2.
Right.
I mean, and they need another receiver, too. I mean, Dell's not going to play this year.
Right.
I'm a Stroud believer, but they're not doing him any favors.
Duck.
Yeah, look out. Right.
13, down a spot, the Chargers.
Their offseason hasn't been kind to them either.
If the Steelers have a quarterback in place right now, I don't care whether it's Russell Wilson, I don't care whether it's Aaron Rodgers. Are they ahead of those two teams?
Yes.
I think so, too.
With one of those two.
With either of those two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I thought the Chargers offseason would be much
impactful.
More impactful. I think they came in second on a lot of people. I heard they really wanted DK Metcalf. And I guess they didn't offer enough.
They didn't get him.
You know, right.
Settled for Mike Williams instead.
Right.
Steelers went that route last year.
I mean, I know Bosa was going to get cut, but he was good.
They got Mike Williams and Najee Harris. That's two of their big signings this offseason.
And Dante Jackson.
All the
guys the Steelers didn't want, right. Kept Mack, and, I get it, but Becton was a recent one I kind of liked they made, but.
Somebody say, the Steelers should have signed Mekhi Becton. Why would Mekhi Becton want to come to – first of all, if you're the Steelers, you want Mason McCormick to play.
Right, he's a right guard.
He's your right guard.
You're happy at right guard.
You're happy with that. 4th-round pick. He played a lot of snaps for you. He's going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Roll with it.
I'd be interested in most teams signing Mekhi Becton. I mean, it looks like he's a much better player now, but guard isn't where you're spending your money if you're the Steelers. Right. I don't see it. I mean, if you're going to trade Siamalu,
that's different.
That's different. I don't know that there's a market or that's even in the cards.
At 12, up a spot are the Broncos.
I like what they're doing. I mean, I think they're to the point now where the foundation has been poured. Now they're starting to paint the house and put the shutters on and give me Ingram and Hampton in the first round maybe and another receiver, that type of thing. I think they're going the right direction.
At 11, up 4 spots, the Bengals.
Oh, they'd be noticeably lower.
I can't get on that. I mean,
I love Burrow.
The offense, for better or worse, well, it's not even the same because they've jettisoned some offensive linemen.
I'm saying I'm not sure where they're better.
I mean, you knew before all this stuff. Okay, they franchised Higgins. He wasn't going anywhere this year.
But they had last year.
Jamar Chase isn't going anywhere this year. Those guys were going to be on the 2025 Bengals. The fact that they've signed them doesn't move the needle for me at all.
They're pretty much the exact same team as last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they
except
really
their
are.
offensive line isn't going to be as good.
They lost one dude, and it wasn't a good line to begin with.
Yeah. Actually, they lost 2 because they got rid of the left tackle, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least, yeah.
They're going to kick Mims over to left tackle.
No, Orlando Brown's the left tackle. They got rid of
the right tackle.
Who started the season at right tackle, and he's always hurt. Yeah. So he's out.
So they had 2 guys who were starters at the beginning of the season last year are gone.
I mean, again, they're almost the exact same team.
And the defense is worse.
I don't know if it's better.
I don't know if it's better.
Looks like it's the same group to me.
You're running it back with some guys that you also got rid of.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't see upgrades.
To move up 4 spots to 11th in the league?
Right. No, they'd be behind Houston. They'd be behind a lot of these teams that we mentioned.
At 10 up a spot, the Rams.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Devontae Adams for Cup. Sign me up for that. Yeah, they added a defensive tackle of note, and kept their O-line intact, yeah.
9 is Tampa Bay, holding steady.
Yeah, they become a good franchise.
8 is Green Bay, holding steady.
Yeah, their O-line stuff's a little weird, but okay.
7 is Minnesota, holding steady.
Sure, but they're counting on a quarterback that's never played in the league.
Right. 6 is Washington, holding steady.
I don't know why I don't quite buy in. I'm just thinking plexiglass like crazy on them. Like
Trading for Debo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil.
Tunsil, I think, is fine. Debo, to me, I think is going to bite you.
Yeah.
They're pretty old.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of Ertzes and Ekelars and Wagners and, okay. I mean, it's great to run it back, and they're a wonderful story, and Daniels is tremendous, and I like their head coach, but I don't know that I'll pick them to make the playoffs this year.
5 down a spot is Detroit.
Yeah, they're really good.
4 down a spot is Buffalo.
Defense is not so great.
Yeah. 3 up 2 spots is Baltimore.
Fine, but it kind of looks like the same group. O-line needs work.
With DeAndre Hopkins now instead of 2. And they still need.
Keeping Stanley was giant.
That was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kansas City wouldn't be this high for me, by the way.
2 is Kansas City, and 1 is Philadelphia.
They're number 1.
They've lost some guys, though, too.
They have. Keeping Bond was big. It's kind of like the Stanley move to me.
Yeah.
Kansas City's got some holes.
Yeah, I don't know that they've filled their offensive line holes with Jalen Moore at $15 million.
Agreed. The D-tackle spot next to Chris Jones is far from great.
Troublesome.
Too. Yeah.
So that's Eric at Holmes.
Their skills are only okay, too.
Right, yeah. They got like 2-3 receivers signed.
Right, and what's Kelsey?
And one of them might get suspended.
Mm-hmm.
That was Eric at Holmes, NFL.com power rankings, as we sit here on
not an easy job.
March 18th. No, I wouldn't like to do that at all. Not a ton of movement there. Some teams have moved up a little bit. Some teams have slipped back a little bit. But other than that,
because free agency hasn't been that impactful across the league, right?
We're a week in.
Yeah, everyone's talking about Steelers didn't get good enough in free agency. Nobody really did. No, right.
Anyways, let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. This is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive on these very airwaves every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. You also can download the Steelers mobile app and get the show there. Or you can watch along on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Apparently, I ticked some people off yesterday.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. We're here to generate, get you talking about stuff. You can agree,
us,
you can
we
disagree.
like
But, listen, watch. It's all there.
Spread the word.
Absolutely. Anyways, let's get to a break. We'll be back to finish up the show right after this. And we're back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, I didn't mention this yesterday. The Steelers had a pre-draft visit yesterday with Iowa State wide receiver Jaden Higgins.
Oh, okay. I didn't see their latest ones. We just mentioned him. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
If they take him pretty high for where they're constructed.
You're starting to come into my belief that there's not a lot of difference between him and Tet McMillan, even though he might be faster than Tet McMillan.
I think he is faster than Tet McMillan. Yeah. Yeah, I think they're on the same tier. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I put Illuminor as my 5th receiver with Higgins as my just missed. I would switch
he was
them
my
today.
5.
Where was he?
Yeah.
I would switch them today. I think he's got a chance to go in round 1.
Yeah.
A chance.
He's
I
big.
like both those Iowa State guys.
He's acrobatic.
Yeah.
He's got speed.
If you don't trade Pickens, though, I don't know how you can get him or fit him in.
He's right. And again, I don't know. He's George Pickens like.
He's similar, right?
Yeah.
He's very similar to the two guys that are going to line up
Yeah.
in terms of usage and where he aligns. He's a good player.
They also hosted today, and this was a local visit, so don't read too much into this, but Pitt place kicker Ben Sauls.
That doesn't move the needle for me. But
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe he'll be at camp and save Boz's leg.
He probably gets drafted by somebody.
Does he? Is he good? I have no idea.
He was really good that, I think to start the season last year, made 18 in a row. And
Oh, really?
A bunch from 50-plus.
Okay. I'm sure he's kicked in some kind of weather as well.
He's kicked
I mean, it's a weird thing to mention.
at Acrisure Stadium a lot.
Right, I know. Obviously. But being the camp body kicker for the Steelers isn't a bad gig because you get to kick in the preseason and you actually get some tape because, you're not ever going to win the job. But as those gigs go, it's not a bad one.
No, not at all. I think he probably –
Hopefully
he's got a big leg. Somebody probably drafts him. He's
Okay.
a left-footed kicker. Not that matters a ton, but
No.
it does matter for your holder.
Your holder can be a little weird.
Yeah.
But they get used to it quick.
They
got a lot of time on their
You
hands.
got time to
Right. I think your
figure
punter
those
can
things
adjust.
out.
Right.
But they're not looking to replace Boz.
No, I mean, he might have been in there and an academic meeting anyways. Why don't you stop in?
Somebody asked me today on Twitter, sent me a question. Are they gonna sign Boz to a new contract? I'm like, well, he's not a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, no, but he's a free agent after next. I'm like, that will get done
whenever.
Sometime in training camp, they'll announce, yeah, Chris Boswell signed a 2-year or 3-year extension.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of those things. He's not going anywhere.
And he's an easy franchise candidate if you had to.
They won't even get to that point.
They will never get to that point. Right. That's low on the priority list.
He's probably the Steelers' place kicker as long as he's continues to play like he has.
The best one in the league right now.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think getting a quarterback landed might be a little big.
Way down the list of things to get done.
Yeah, a lot more things to do than that.
Yeah. But.
So, that was it? I thought there might be more.
That was it.
Okay.
Two. Pro days.
Higgins is interesting.
There's some more pro days that kick up the rest of this week. I don't know if they'll have any more visitors in this week. You never know.
Pro days are busy right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them
going
on.
I think like Bama or somebody's coming up that will be one that they'll.
I think there's like the Big 12 pro day going on too right now, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that'll be some of that news will start to slow down, and then it'll pick back up.
I would think just being around the facility is a little quieter than usual too.
Extremely quiet.
There's people on the road, and there's a lot of other things going on.
Absolutely, but you never know who you're going to run into over there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes players.
Yeah,
every once in a while.
I remember walking past Washington when he was in on his visit from Georgia. I was like, whoa. And
big dude.
Yeah. Like, didn't know he was in. I'm like, that's definitely him.
Yeah.
There's not many guys walking around like that.
Anyways, Matt, that's going to do it for the show today. So for my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller, running the Justin Miller hotline, and which we didn't use today, but also running the soundboard here for us. Tomorrow we will.
Yeah.
And for Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets out there onto YouTube. Give us a thumbs up on that. We appreciate that. I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.